This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. We enter into our life of service, wanting nothing more than to make a difference, seeing all the pitfalls and problems of daily home life. Responding to call after call gives us a vision of home life that is the antithesis of wonderful and happy. Our proficiency in handling situations where the right answer is rarely cut and dry becomes acute and well-rounded. We enter into a procedural comfort zone, allowing us to handle most situations. Falling by the wayside is those that we go home to every single night. We are really good at taking care of others and very bad at taking care of ourselves. All we want is peace, even though what is seen shatters us into pieces. Before we know it, we are deep in a situation that will end in pain. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out exactly what we're up to. This is a big one, bro. This is a big episode. I have a guy, we've known each other for almost 25 years, my brother, my friend, and that's Freddie Mitchell. I recently reconnected with you, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have you in here. Thanks for coming in, bud.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. It's been a pleasure. You know, it's like a godsend. I've seen you out here doing your thing and stumble upon you doing your work.
Who would have thought?
You know, we've been around for a long time, and you know, on the job, it's like I'm ID 57, you're 58, came in 6 months apart, and you know, we've been chopping it up ever since. You know, we've been through some ups and downs.
Shared the same car.
Same car for a while.
Same car. Yeah. We're going to get into a really deep story because Freddie has his whole backstory, and then there's the part of it where this man here saved my life. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police officers, but we do trust them. So go to toyotahackensack.com. So Freddie, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Retro54. Why do you think guys like us find peace in helping others? I know you're that type of guy. I know you find peace in passing what you've learned on to other people. Why do you think that is? What is it, something you're born with, or is it something you develop?
I think with most of us being police officers, we come with an inherited position, a disposition in our character that puts us, either it comes from childhood growing up, you know, some things that we might have been too weak to handle when we were young. When you get older, you take a position in life. And now that we're in a position of some authority, some control, we have discretion. And I think just seeing and being that person, you know what I mean, it's almost like being the shepherd in the field, right? You take care of the flock.
And one of them gets away, what do? You
got to go them back. You go get them. When we help people, I think it's just as much as satisfying to us, you know, because there's a lot of bad people out there in this world. And, you know, it's going to take, you know, a wolf to catch a wolf kind of thing, you know, but we're just on the other side of that. You know, we're playing, you know, the good guy in a sense. You know, we're trying to protect the public. We're trying to protect who we are as people. You know, that same principle goes into taking care of our families, and it just trickles down.
But once you get that feeling of being that shepherd, I don't think it ever leaves you. I know for myself that ability, when you touch somebody's lives, whether you were in the military or on the police force, wherever you were, when you get that feeling of touching somebody's life and really making a true difference in their life, it's better than any drug. It's better than anything you can drink. It's better than any feeling in the world. And it's hard to explain for somebody who doesn't know that.
Right.
And thankfully there are those shepherds out there, because sometimes the shepherds become the sheep.
That's right.
That's what happened in my case.
Right.
I just always have found it's what gives me peace. It's what quiets my mind in chaos. You know, recent events here have just thrown my life into a little bit of upheaval. But when I, even as short afterwards as like a week afterwards, there was, the weekend of, there was people reaching out to me and they were lost. Well, you know what? I was able to drop my sorrow for a moment, and I was able to reach out to them to make sure that they're all right, because I knew if I'm able to reach them and just give them a little bit of understanding, a little bit of peace, it was going to make me feel a little bit better. And it did. You know, since Mike's passing, it's been 3 weeks now, I've been on the phone nonstop. And I make sure I check on my brothers and sisters a little closer than I did before. You know, so tragic events realign the mission, and the mission has always been to leave this world better than we found it. And that's what I always try to do. But more than that, it's a selfish thing for me, because it's what gives me peace, even when I'm all broken inside. You know, I say this term, you know, helping people is what gives me peace, even when I'm in pieces. So, Retro54, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. And while you're at it, go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley. Go see Gus at Cubita Cafe. Some of the most delicious food. I was just there. I brought my whole family over there. And here's the best advertisement I can give. My 14-year-old son sat down there and had one of the sloppy Cubans, and he's about to graduate 8th grade, and he says, "Hey, Dad, after we graduate, can you take me to lunch here?" That's what this place does. Most delicious food, family, and like Gus says, he's not in the food business, he's in the people business. So go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley. Go see Gus at Cubita Cafe. Man, it's been a long time we've known each other, brother.
Yeah, it's like, where do you start? You know, when you're looking at bringing that peace that comes with, you know, our relationship and, you know, coming on the job and then having a secondary family is what we, you know, how we position ourselves. You know, we spend more time at work than we do home.
Yep.
And when you're talking about being broken in pieces and things from, you know, that previous question, it's like that situation in which we lived through and the things that we have endured over time, it does bring you some peace to know that you can effectively help someone else or bring a smile to a kid's, you know, face, you know, make their day better and, you know, give them a better perception of what policing is. You know, we're a community within a community.
Correct.
You know, and we build our relationships with the public in order to keep them safe and give them another perspective. It's not everything that you see on TV and clips and moments in time. There's a lot of background that goes into.
You watch Cops, and it's 45 minutes of hot calls.
That's it.
Well,
that's all you see.
You'll get 45 minutes of hot calls in a year, you know, where we worked.
Right.
But the one thing about you, Fred, is first time I met you, I walk in and you have, and people will they say I look scary. I just don't smile a lot or something. And you had that about you. You had that presence about you. But I'm going to tell you, over time, I've gotten to know you very quickly. You and I bonded a lot. You have the biggest heart I've ever seen in my life. You're always willing to give more than you take. Always. And that's from day one. Day one. You know, we came into a toxic work environment, you and I, and you had been there 6 months prior to me, and I leaned on you because you had been through the academy already, and you had seen some of the garbage going on. You know, I remember the one thing you told me, you know, because I would ask you about, hey, I heard this person, and you said, make your mind up for yourself. Judge them on how you think. And I never forgot that. And I do appreciate your mentorship in that time, because you don't know what the hell you're doing when you just first get out of the academy.
It's just, you know, when I came into the police department, it's the fact that, you know, I've been in the Ranger Battalion. You know, I served at Fort Benning, Georgia. So, you know, I have special operations training. So when you're looking at leadership and how you got to lead your men, you know, we as a sergeant, and that's the position I had at the time, promotable to a staff sergeant, E6. So I came into the police with those leadership and the doctrine that comes with leading men, you know, taking a young rookie and bringing him to the next level. Even though I was a rookie on the police department itself, I still came with a lot of experience.
So you were able to pinpoint what a good boss and a bad boss was.
Absolutely.
All right.
I've been the boss myself,
right.
You know, a squad leader, you know, running a platoon, you know, running squads myself. So when you're looking at different dynamics and when guys need help, and we're not there to create issues or problems. I'm there to solve them, you know, bring a solution, you know, retrain it, train the trainer kind of thing. So to make an officer more proficient in tactics, which I'm very experienced in, you know, we used to stop 2 and 3 cars a pop. Mm-hmm. You were just remnants in the mirror of what I used to do. You were doing the same, if not more, you know, so you were like a master at it. You just grew and you became that better officer in a tumultuous situation. So when you're looking at the progression of policing, it's always got to progress with the times. And, you know, we have an archaic kind of situation where you have old school is not meeting and being educated to the new way of policing. Being proactive, being reactive. Those things matter, especially when you got a young department and you're trying to cultivate new ideas. You're running old SOPs against a new regime, and then you got new policies, and you got very new, different type of ways of policing. So when you're looking at how you have to handle the public and you're dealing with the dynamics and the diversity in the towns, I have to deal with a lot of that. I got to be able to bridge my environment to the new environment I'm in. And then I got to take military experience, and then I got to pull that back. And how's that work here? So you have to work with your administration, but when the administration is not working with you, then you start rubbing elbows.
You had a tremendous resource that if I was a police department and I have somebody like you coming in there, you don't have the street experience of police work. You have real world experience in the military, but you're a tremendous resource because you can bring certain things and pull certain things. And I've said this for years. Guys coming out of the academy, they don't have the true blue experience, but they have something that the older guys don't have. They're more well versed on 2C. They're in much better shape. They're younger. They're more aggressive. They're more proactive. All these different things. But unfortunately, where we worked, I was told, you don't know this job until 5 years. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you believe it when you're young, but then you're like, well, in 5 years, it's just going to be a snap of a finger and I'm going to know this job. No, it's not what it is. When you had certain bosses, there were some of them in there that said this exact thing to me. Well, you know 2C better than me. So if I have a 2C question, I'm going to come to you. Cool. All right. I'm happy to help. I'm so thrilled to help. But unfortunately, you had some of the old school guys that were just like, you're just a rookie, which I hate that word.
The problem is it's like each generation doesn't understand that it's like when I'm an elder, right? And then you're looking at the younger, individuals coming up. Each one helps each other.
Yeah.
See, when being young, as you said, coming out of the police academy, we're looking at the 2C, we got the most updated information that you're going to have, right? So, but as us being elders or experienced veteran police officers, you're also teaching them how to be a lot more proficient as a rookie. We get the new doctrine, they get the experience through us.
And so if you work together, God, you could have a
beautiful thing, right? So when you have that constant friction of power,
I think it's ego.
It's ego too.
I think it's ego.
It's because we have the power and with the authority, but you got to know how to use it and implement it the proper way. Because you have to use discretion, discernment, things like that. So when you're looking at people and individuals and people going through things in life, you got to be human when you're being a police officer. Just when you put on a police uniform doesn't give you carte blanche.
Some people in our department believe that.
You're not. You're walking around like you God. You're not God.
No.
You're a man or a woman that's putting on the uniform and the pants. You're dealing with people that got families and kids and children. Things like that. People got hard times and frustrations and things and bad days at work. So we're not there to keep adding on. You got to be almost like a street counselor sometimes. You got to be there to enforce the law, but use your discretion to make the right decision.
It was put to me this way. And it was a gentleman named Terry, who you know who Terry is. He said, be corrective, not punitive. When I heard that, something in me clicked.
Right.
And I never forgot that. And so I used the remainder of my time in the police department to be corrective and not punitive. Meaning, you pull somebody over 2-3 times for the same violation. Well, obviously,
you got to learn a lesson.
You got to learn a lesson.
Right.
Sometimes being corrective is financial pain. You grew up. I know you had a deep love for your father because I always heard you talk about him. Why don't you give our audience a little window into how you grew up, where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in Morristown, New Jersey. My father owned a barbershop, small beginnings. He's an entrepreneur. I love my dad to death. Really didn't understand a lot of the struggle when he came from down south, trying to be an entrepreneur and have his own,
he's talking growing up in the 50s and 60s.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's a little different down in the South in the 50s and 60s.
Absolutely. You're coming from, an environment that kept you down. Coming up north was a land of opportunity. He had his own business, ran the barbershop. We had a landscaping business, produce. I ran all that with him.
He was a hustler.
He was a hustler, bar none, and it turned me into one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so was my son because of me and him. So it's just a generational thing. So is my daughter. She's a she's a tough female, and I raised them both. But coming up through those times, it's just, he always taught us to, God blesses the man that has his own, and when he always strived to have your own, be able, so you can be your own boss, so you can make your own decisions to take care of your family. So there's a lot of pride that was instilled in me growing up.
And because of the love for your father, I'm sure that made you want to succeed all that much more.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to make somebody proud. It's like, I thought at some point I would never catch up to my dad. There's always a bar to catch, to meet, and when you're going through life, it's like, I'm never going to be that man. And so I always strive to be better or be something like, but be my own man and be my own, purposeful in that aspect, and do what he tried to do, working so hard, and then he wasn't able to spend a lot of time with me, so my father kept me at work with him. So that was his way that he showed.
But that's quality time.
That's quality time.
Yeah.
But not knowing when you're young, you want to go play. So I played baseball, played football, and did those things as a young man would do growing up. But because he had to work and he was always looking out for me, like my dad was my angel, and he kept me out of trouble. He kept me out of the street because he always knew where I was at.
So where'd you grow up in Morristown? Was it in the Hollow?
No, I grew up on Martin Luther King Avenue.
All right.
First of all, I started off on Jersey Avenue, and then I moved over to Martin Luther King Avenue in high school.
Okay.
And then I grew up there for the rest of the time.
Because Morristown,
right up the street.
Morristown's a different town now than 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There was parts of Morristown that were a little sketchy, Now it's I guess you would call it gentrified, but it's $1 million homes and high rises and all that stuff.
Well, it's just, when you're looking at Morristown, there's always been a split and divide.
Oh, the historic section?
You got a historic section. You have the well-to-do section. Then, you had the middle class. But we had a working middle class. And, everyone that lived down the street, that lived in Clyde Potts Drive and where that was what they call the Hollow, they was good people. We grew up with good people. We had good hearts, had big families. Everyone's coming from down south. Everybody's trying to leverage their funding and financing, and we had a real tight community. And growing up in our community was with self-sufficient. Everyone paid money inside their businesses. So when those things start happening, you build a lot of pride, you build a lot of camaraderie, you build a lot of diversity, things that can shape you. Because most of our friends, we looked into the next level of getting out of the neighborhood, go away to college, and come back and do things that would help raise up the next generation.
Well, that's an important thing. So, you work to get out of a situation that maybe you don't like, economics, whatever it may be. But too many people will work themselves out of that situation and turn their back on it. And I just think that's the wrong thing to do. Those are the people that need to go back and revitalize their community. Say, hey, look, this is possible. You're an example at that point.
It's tough in the sense that when 1, 2, 3, or 4 of us can get out and we come back, I'm still met, regardless of the position or the degrees or the licenses that I have obtained, I'm still met with the resistance. I'm still met with the prejudice. I'm still met with the spiteful, vindictive, and the restrictions of trying to make things better for the people that I grew up with.
In your own community?
In our own community.
So are you looked at like a traitor?
Not necessarily a traitor. What it is, you come back to help. I have the respect, whether I have the gun, the badge, or the uniform, just because of the man I am. But when you first get on the job, you got to choose between the friends and the family. We all go through it. It's just a rite of passage. Right?
There's some friends that you can't go hang out with. Yeah.
Right. So when you're looking at that and trying to do what's best for your family, some of us move out and get a better place, better house, new location, different environment. Some of us stay and we're around. So when I stayed in the neighborhood and around where I was still grew up at, came back home from Georgia, back to New Jersey, got on the job, it's like what I try to do is try to educate some of the younger men that are coming up in different generations. It's like, this is how you handle things. So it almost became like an information, gateway. Here's what you need to know in order to how to handle certain situations. Because, we as a people are angry with some things that happen in our lives. There is the mistreatment of law enforcement in the community. There's excessive force that we deal with. And see, when being a black police officer coming back, there's that now, which side are you playing on? You get that traitor information. It's almost like, are you with us here or are you over there with them? No, I'm who I am. And I sat in that seat already. I'm just doing something that's better for my life that's going to protect my people too, because it's been that for you. So it's not an idea that I have to be prejudiced or anything that comes with that. That comes to like we trying to even the playing field. So when you come out there and that's like being in the military, there was no black, white, and this and that, the other. What shade of green are you? Now it's like, what shade of blue are you? You know, so now when you're looking at the camaraderie and you're looking at how to bridge gaps, we have to bridge the gap. I'm a person that's dropped in as a puzzle piece so we can do what we need to do, because without having someone of us out of the community to understand what the laws and how have to manage that and handle this, we're lost. That's why we have these tensions in the street. You have all the abuse that happens. Some are good, some are bad, and some are misunderstood, so you have to bridge it.
So you talk about misunderstandings. I know we're kind of jumping around here, but so you get on the job and you have a different perspective on the police work of when the police came into your neighborhood when you were growing up. All right. So you might have seen them as a young kid as being a little heavy-handed. Maybe they were excessive, and maybe they were, or maybe it was a misperception. You getting on the job and seeing the other side of it, did it put some stuff into perspective where, okay, this guy was heavy-handed, but maybe this guy wasn't. He was just scared, or he was in a bad situation. Did it give you a little different look at it?
Oh no, absolutely. It gives you a 360 view. Yeah, you're on the inside now.
Yeah.
So the things that you did see when you were younger, you can understand some things that happen for a certain way because someone's out of line. Someone could be disrespectful, or somebody could be reaching for a weapon or a gun. Mm-hmm. So being a police officer and going through the academy, especially with me being in the military, I'm a very tactical individual. So I see things before I forecast them. So I see dangers coming before they happen. So, we protect ourselves. And in doing so, the public doesn't know every aspect of our training until they actually do something. You put them in a FATS machine. You can see the realistic aspects of the decisions you have to make within 1/100th of a second. Could be the meaning of life and death. And they don't have that. We do.
So Jimmy Marinara puts me in the FATS machine in the police academy. Our gentleman in the control room knows Jimmy really well. Right. And the first time I went in there, guy's coming at me, the one where he's holding the baby and he's coming at me with a machete. Well, he drops the baby and starts just running towards me. And I drop down and I fire. I drop down on a knee and I fire. And afterwards, he asked me, he goes, how many times do you think you fired? I said, I don't know, 3. And he goes, try 7. That's how quick it happens, and you don't even realize it.
Right.
So that gave me a different perspective, where you say you had and the Diallo shooting was a little bit different, but say you have somebody like Amadou Diallo who shot 57 or 58 times, something like that, and you think as a civilian who's never been in that situation, well, how the hell you shoot somebody 58 times? Well, here's how it happens. You got adrenaline. You don't really know. You're trying to go until the threat stops. There was other circumstances, because I have a friend who was an NYPD officer at the time. He has a little different take on it, and I understand that. But this stuff happens so damn quick. And then we get to sit back here, and one of the favorite terms was Monday morning quarterback. Right. We get to Monday morning quarterback it as a civilian under calm circumstances, and it's just not fair. It's not fair to do that stuff. So you move on. Your father teaches you all these great lessons. And if he made you a tenth of the person you are today, your father was a great man. But then why join the military? Was it college military, or did you go to college first, then the military?
I went to college first, and then going through the state police process while I was in the military. So before that happened, the state police was going through their processes of not having a diverse police department for the state. So I was one of the first couple sets of graduates that came out of college that was going through that process for the diversity hires. I had an investigator that was a stickler. He wasn't trying to let anybody in. He was just a gatekeeper, just as qualified as anybody else. I already had that internship with the prosecutor's office.
No rest, no troubles,
no. So as life started to progress, as the reality starts to hit, you start seeing the reality of this is what this looks like. See, because when you start going through the processes of now future progression of promotions and who's going to be in charge, who's going to be in administration, they don't let us on the job as easy as you think. Because at the end of the day, if my partner or my predecessors before me, I got guys I graduated with, They got on the job 4 or 5 years before me. All of us had the same qualifications, all had degrees, no records, no nothing. So now when they get on the job, they got 4 or 5 years experience. They're becoming the sergeants, the lieutenants, the captains, and then in charge of units. When you first get on now, you're a rookie, 5, 6 years to them. So we all spend about 25 years on the job, and if you're lucky, 30. So you'll never, ever be in charge. So there's always a position when you're going down the line that keeps you, for me, that keeps you at bay.
So what was the position that was keeping you at bay? Well,
Just the hiring process, you know?
You were looking to, you were going through state police. What happened to the hiring process? I mean, you're a veteran. Mm-hmm. And that was when veteran preference actually meant something, because now everybody's a veteran because we had a 20-year war.
Right.
What happened with them?
I think it just comes to the roll of the dice, luck of the draw. I ended up having an investigator he had me in there investigating for 5 hours. Everyone was walking in hour and a half, in and out of their interviews. I was there, I got grilled.
What do you have? He had a bug.
He
up
had
his
a
ass?
bug.
Yeah.
He had a bug, and I was squared away. You know, I was prepped for it, but it
there's
was disappointing. A lot of disappointments that come with that. And then, here we go. You run into different things. You go through some ups and downs in college. Had some mishaps. I had to get my record expunged.
Okay.
But that didn't affect that at the time.
Well, state police is always screwed up. So I applied on a whim with my brother in '99, and mind you, I don't even have a traffic ticket.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I have multiple college degrees. I have graduate degrees. I have all this stuff. And I got the letter back. And somewhere in my house, there's the letter. It says, I don't meet the qualifications. I go,
right.
What are you talking about? I don't meet the I don't even meet the qualifications to take test.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I didn't understand that at the time. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise.
Of course.
I really don't want to be a state police officer.
Yeah, and it's just a prestigious thing. It's just something to achieve. It's a goal. Just like anything else. Just like being a police officer. There's good. When you always go back to the root of why you became a cop, is the fact that you can help people. It wasn't a selfish thing. I didn't really care for much of anything else I went through. It was just the fact that I had the ability to change someone's life and protect them. And that's what drove my ability to endure more than most, just to keep giving, because I know what it is to feel with not having a parent around or having a confidant or having a mentor, those things. I had those things. I've been trained and taught, crazy lessons of leadership, taking care of your own, taking care of the family, take care of the team, because we work for our people. My squad never worked for me. I worked for them. And in turn, they did their jobs and we came home in one piece.
So you grew up. So any of your friends that you grew up with take a different path than you?
I think
a lot of mine did. That's why I'm asking that question.
I think majority of my friends, I think we kept each other tight.
Good.
Some might have took a left turn here and there, but I think because of the relationships that we all had, even when they were doing something bad, for a while when we were young, they all turned because of the way we led our life. We have more guys doing better things. And if they were in the street, they're homeowners now. They're working 9-to-5 jobs and doing well. They're actually doing better than me right now at this point. So it's like when you look at things, it's like you always want to influence the better things out of people, make them the best version of themselves. So it always becomes something that's good.
But you had a good foundation. So that's the big thing. This is what I'm hearing. Your foundation was solid.
For the most part.
And you look at some people in your neighborhood who maybe weren't your friends but went that bad route, and you look at so I got a friend of mine. She's a retired Patterson cop, and she lives in one of the worst areas possible. And she goes, yeah, there's drug dealers. She still lives in the house. There's drug dealers over here. There's drug dealers over there. And I go, well, why were you able to get out? And she goes, because my mom would have beat my ass. And I said, you see, that's it. It's all about the foundation.
Right.
So that makes you the type of person, the person that you are today is that solid. Then from that foundation, if you have a good foundation, you can build anything on top of that.
That's true. I mean, you got to have a powerful, purposeful why. Mm-hmm. And shit, God knows, like, going through what we've been through, if the why isn't tight and not big enough, because there's some dark days, and I suffered.
Oh, you suffered. We're gonna go.
I suffered, brother. And like, I went through some things that, and it goes right down to like saying not today.
Mm-hmm.
That's a not today moment. And I had plenty of them,
You get hired. So state police doesn't work out. And how did you find Roseland Police Department?
Oh, we had a good chief up in, it was the Chief Tovo up in Mountain Lakes. He interviewed me, and he just didn't have a slot at the time to bring me on. He was a great chief. He was a good man. And he said, there's like 3 different piles, right? So he was like the C, B, and A. He said, then there's the special golden pile. And it's like I fell in the golden pile, right? Because I had military, I had the experience.
You fit all the markers.
I fit all the markers all the way through. He would have hired me, but it's just that he didn't have the role at the time. But he knew the chief that we worked for. So he said he needs some help out there in Roseland. So he made a phone call.
Was he really a good chief if you recommended that department?
Well, at the time when you need help.
Yeah, when you need help, yeah.
When you need help, you're in those positions where you're trying to find some good men, and that can help you assist you build a department out of whatever ruin it was in, And sometimes we don't know that we create the ruin that we're in. So, he recommended me there, and I applied, and then, that's how it started, that process.
When people find out how I got hired, it's a crazy thing.
Right.
I was like, I met this guy in the gym.
Right,
I swear to God, I met the guy in the gym, and he's like, hey, we're hiring. Why don't you come take a test? I think you'd be a good police officer. All right. I was tired of traveling. Go in there and take a basic IQ test. And that was it.
Right.
That was it. And before you know it, I was on. Was it something similar with you? It's like they goes on recommendation, or did you go through an interview? You had to go through a basic interview.
We had to go through the interview. It just wasn't as scary or what people may put it out to be. A lot of times you just have that conversation. Here's the resume. Here's my credentials. You run through your backgrounds. Everyone's doing everything they have to do. It wasn't nothing different than anyone else didn't go through. It just looked different. We had a different, approach to doing the same thing.
So you, I know, were the first black officer to get hired. There was one, Mark Gray, but he was half.
Yeah,
so you were the first black officer in Roseland Police Department history, which is crazy because you got hired in 2001. That's kind of insane, but the key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherrie Allsup is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherrie on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherrie has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherrie's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherrie will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherrie's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherrie also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherrie Allsup, go to sherrieallsup.com. That's SherrieAllsup.com. You fit a lot of different markers. First of all, they don't have a black officer, and they need a black officer. Departments need black officers. They need diversity within their rank and file because you're dealing with all different types of people on a daily basis. And if they're looking at your entire police department and all they're seeing are white faces, that's a problem.
You need representation.
Sure.
And the thing is, it's like you got to have, even if it's one or two of us, in the department. Now, we became diverse over time. We had female officers. Mm-hmm. We got Spanish-speaking officers. Sure. And you got a couple of black officers, and then the majority were white. But we all had a very diverse upbringing, different areas and environments that we came through. So that made us very dynamic, and we did our jobs well. So when you're looking at dealing with the public, you have representation because it saved you. It saved me.
It saved, yeah. Well, so
we've been through that.
So the backstory with Freddie and I is because we were so close and getting hired, we worked very closely with each other. A lot of times we drove the same car. and we knew how to bounce off of each other. It was a really nice, comfortable relationship where I know I could rely on him. He knew he could rely on me. And that I love that. Like it made you feel secure.
Absolutely.
When
you
you're
need
out
that
on
on
the
the
road.
road.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you need that.
So you're in a very suburban white neighborhood. And I don't want to make this about race, but
no.
I know you were looked at by some little side-eyed because, like it or not, racism does exist. People will look at you differently because of the color of your skin. And did you run into that in this white suburban town?
You already know.
I know.
You already know.
I already
Yeah. I know. You dealt with it a little bit in Caldwell, and then you had it in Essex Fells. You had officers over there, and everyone makes their comments. I work nights,
Oh, I'll tell you. I'll say it right now. I know what the comment is.
Oh.
They pulled over a car, and I think the code for them, I'm not going to say the department,
Right.
but the code for them was 1039, which is a motor vehicle stop. I'll be 1039 with a load of coal. You know what that means. For everybody out there, I just pulled over a car full of black people.
Right.
And I heard that over the air. I heard it over the air. I go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Shit. You get all the comments. When I came into the department, we had they said I was gonna be met with some of that. You coming out of the military, myself. I already had a regimen in how I operated. And I'm a tactical individual. So a lot of things, you take on the chin, but at the same time, it's like I'm not someone that you can disrespect.
Not a chump.
It's far from that.
Yeah.
So the thing is like you got to hold people accountable. Everyone walked in a little bit of eggshells because they didn't know how you're going to react or do some things. I've been in my little bit of here and trouble here and there in the department because of it. Because I'm stand up for myself. I'm my own man, right? So I never let the badge or the uniform or the weapon dictate who I am as a man. As a father or a dad, none of that. This is here.
Take away the persona of the police officer.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear certain comments or you hear somebody else said a certain comment, what's that feel like inside? I don't have this. I'm obviously not black, so
right.
I don't have this experience. What does that make you feel like inside? Does it like, man, geez, again, like what is this shit?
No, I never had that aspect of like, again, it's like I hold people accountable.
So you go up to them and say,
"Oh no, you get dealt with. You're going to get talked to. I'm going to tell you what it is, and then or I'm just going to tell you you're just ignorant, right?
Yeah.
I said you need to change how you thinking because you remember the time that we were sitting at the, I think it was the Starbucks, and had a one girl coming in, and it was coming out of town, and she was a David Duke fanatic.
Oh my God.
Remember that?
Yeah.
You talking about getting blasted by a female that was running her mouth of every derogatory word in this and be that and anything that can happen. But then there's the professional side of having enough discipline to understand that when somebody's sick or someone's just being ignorant. She was a little bit of both. But at the time that all that came down, we had one of our officers come down, the sergeant. I think he was working. And then when he came down, they locked her up. But we took her to crisis. And the best medicine that she could have gotten is to take her down to East Orange crisis.
You're 100% correct on that one because that will open your eyes real quick because you're all bags of shit down there. So
right.
I mean,
so now you want to run your mouth about who this is, who I am. And I was off duty at the time going to work, so I didn't have anything on. But she ended up saying all the same things to a police officer. And now it's a bias incident. But I don't charge her because I'm going to be better than that. But I'm going to show you the lesson in how karma works. So I send you to East Orange crisis because you're acting crazy.
So I used to like when people, it was a reverse for me. It's, I'd pull over a black person and they'd call me a cracker. They'd call me whatever they call me. I looked at it this way. You're telling me exactly who you are without me having to do any work. You're just showing me behind the curtain of who you are as a person. And I actually like that. When I see that, it's the people, I don't know about you, but it's the people who smile to your face and then stab you in the back. Those are the people that I really, really have a problem with. They'll placate you to your face and then they'll go away. Oh, it's this guy, it's this and that, and then call you whatever name they want to. I always had a bigger problem with those people.
Well, the thing is when you first got on, it's one of the first conversations I had with you. I said, listen, when you talk to some of these officers out here and you start dealing with people, you need to make your decision based on their behavior, not everything that they say. They're going to say certain things just to keep you and to just drop your defenses so you can just open yourself up. So you watch what they do and how they behave to the public and their people, how they speak to their family, how they speak to other drivers on the road. Just watch and learn. They're going to show you who they are.
And when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you believe them.
Yeah.
So you move on, and you do have all different things in the police department. You were in the DB. You were doing some stuff down in the city.
Yeah,
correct?
rapid deployment teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Like when we first got on, it was fun.
We had fun.
We had a good time. You know, we were younger. We were aggressive. Some of the bosses didn't really like that. You know, we got some pushback for that stuff. And somehow you get tied into the boss where you're the boss's guy.
Right.
Now, I knew differently, but from the outside world looking in, everybody, oh, he's the chief's guy. He's the chief's guy. I know you weren't. I know you were being ordered to do certain things, but how did you feel about that? Did you like that, or did you like that detail, or it was just business as usual?
I think the detail in the beginning, when it allowed me to be what I need to be as a police officer. Because when I was in the beginning, obviously, when you're the rookie, you're getting tossed everywhere. Guys are dropping work on you. You're doing their reports when they're there.
50 house checks in the morning.
Yeah, you're doing all their stuff. So in the beginning, it was more of a sidebar protection aspect because I was allowed to just go do what I do. Run down people, write tickets, do traffic. Don't have to answer too many calls. I had a good field training officer with Gates.
Oh, glad he was my field training officer as well.
So he was solid. He always treated me well.
Except that motherfucker listened to fucking jazz
because of me
and turned the heat on.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there and I'm driving and I'm nodding because I'm listening to Chuck Mangione and it's 900 degrees in there. It's because I got on the road like December, and but other than that, he was good. He was.
Oh yeah, he's
good.
Solid. I liked him, and we always chopped it up. And he likes jazz because I like jazz. I'm the one that caused that.
Oh,
that's
thanks,
what I used to
man.
put it on. Yeah,
thanks, bro.
That's what he did. We turned it on 101.9 at the time. That was the station.
God, it was awful.
So he started to like it because he used to listen to something else. Then I started listening. I listened. That was what I was listening to. So since I was out there with him, he started taking heed to it. And he started liking it. So that was his go-to.
Now, how's stuff at home at this time? You have a young daughter, and when I first got on, your young daughter had some medical issues, and I remember it scaring the hell out of me. Like I came to the hospital. It was in Morristown, and it just scared the hell out of me. And I wasn't even a father yet, but that's how much you impacted me that I felt I wanted to just be there, just as somebody to say, "Hey, bro, listen, whatever you need. You need something. I'm here."
Right.
And it was big for me. And now she's, this gorgeous, beautiful woman. And I was like, man, you got your hands full with that one, brother.
You treat them as young adults at this point. At that time when she was getting sick, she had a lot of seizures. A couple times where you don't know, there'd be a touch and go because she had grandma seizures. They were back to back. And it was like machine gun fire, just constantly shaking and going through it. It's nerve-wracking, stressful, especially your parent. It was rough on her mother, too, seeing it. And I got to handle it, keep everything calm, get her to the hospital, get her checks, and doing all the things that come with that.
Meanwhile, still trying to keep your head in the game when you go to work, because it's even though it's a suburban town, there's dangers out there.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course.
So that's hard to keep that,
just a
that
balance.
waypoint. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes with it, the discipline of certain things, when we go to work, I took a lot of that experience from the military, being in the field, and I never really took pictures to the field with me because my prize at the end of the day is to come home and be able to see my kids and hold them myself physically.
I remember an incident where it was touch and go. Remember the car chase out of the Lexus dealership?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that accident. I can still tell you the numbers for that accident. So what happens, let's backtrack. They're detailing a car for delivery. A kid gets in there. Of course, he was an aspiring rap star, good kid, but he stole a car. And you pick up the chase on Eisenhower Parkway, and you're chasing him, and you lose him. So he loses control of the car because he's only a kid, hits the ramp at 77 miles an hour, hits a fire hydrant, throws the fire hydrant 311 feet. This is how well I remember this. Launches himself at, the launch was 77 miles an hour. Hits a small tree, and that tree
could have been
4 inches.
Around, hardly.
4 inches, and the car hangs up in the tree. The engine goes 110 feet and hits a car that was in our fire department. And I think I was one of the first ones there. It was me and somebody else, and I see the kid on the ground. He's dead, and the car's still hanging up in the tree.
Yeah.
And then you went through the ringer for that one.
It was, our sergeant and ourselves, we sat down, we talked, and his perspective of the end of, the chase and, the pursuit, we were at a good distance. It was just the fact that he decided to make a decision, and I happened to be there on the other side of that decision.
No, he rammed you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he rammed you. I remember everything about that. And I remember, I remember looking down at the kid who's dead on the ground, and I'm like, man, he must have whacked his teeth on the steering wheel. And then the paper ran something the next day, and the kid was smiling. I'm like, nah, his teeth were just jacked up before he got in there. That's how well I remember that accident.
Yeah, it was a situation. I was at the end of Eisenhower already myself. The Sergeant Jace was working at the time. Was working together, and from that point on, it's like we had a plan. He said, don't go up into this ramp doing 100 miles an hour, and I'm gonna be in it. So we're just gonna slow things down, and he managed that well. And then we sat side by side, and I told him, I said, there's the car right there. And then I went over on the other side over to the Luke Oil from the Exxon, and went across, and then this guy looked at me, I looked at him. And he decided to step on the gas, and I stepped on my gas. It's on. So when we sheared off each other, he pounced past the diesel gas tanks as I bounced back as well. His car shut off, mine's shut off. But when we hit, his axle broke underneath the car. The back axle is where I hit him in the back. And that created the situation where the car was out of control when he shot up Eagle Rock Avenue. He sideswiped the car on Passaic, and he just went up Eagle Rock, and he took off. We went out of sight for a while. My car's smoking, Sergeant Jace's, we're parallel to each other. He's on the air calling it in. I got hit, and, nobody hears nothing else from me. So when... So I was in headquarters, and here's what we hear. Car just hit a tree, white car. And I'm like, oh, shit. I think it's you. I think it's me.
I think it's you. So we run down there, and there he is. But Steve always used to... Steve Sarjace, I love Steve. I still talk to him occasionally, and he used to teach me, you run them into the ramp. You knew where they were going. They're going 280 east. You run them into the ramp because years ago there was a fuel spill on there. So and as soon as you get to the ramp, let off the gas,
right,
and let them keep accelerating because their car is going to spin. And I used to catch a lot of cars that way because they would spin off the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's the experience that we're talking about.
Right.
That's the experience. But I know you got put through the ringer with that one. And, somebody lost their life tragically. A kid, he was a kid. He was making kid decisions.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Now, you're a human being.
Mm-hmm.
What's going through your head? You see this, and did you feel responsible? Did you feel bad? Did you feel like you did your job?
There's multiple different levels of that for me. Part of me, a version of me, coming out of the military, that's a decision of war and battle. He made a decision to try to take my life. So based on that approach, I'm doing my job to stop the threat. He made a decision to, use aggression and violence that comes with it. So it's just meeting the same energy with the same energy. I'm not going to sit back and be a victim of anything. So when they become aggressive, you got to meet them with the same aggression back to stop the threat. You don't sit there and take the blow. So, some of the tactics and the things that I learned in the military actually helped me survive that situation. If I sat there and took the blow the way that I was positioned, I get pinned in the car with the door between the center console which is all metal for us.
Lexus LS 400 or ES 300 or LS 400. It was one of those.
It's one of the ES, I think. It was a 2-door coupe, right? So when you're looking at it and sitting on the side of the door, actually when we got hit, because I didn't have a cage in the car, that gave me a.
That's right. Vehicle two. Freddie and I got put in because there was no cage in the car. It was more comfortable.
We got more comfortable. Yeah. So because of that, I was able to come out of the seat and get back in the seat a little bit to dodge the hit. So that was a blessing too. That's the reason why we had the car.
Right.
So so we can move around. But in that, it was more or less stop the threat and protect the public. Once I got hit, it was just a matter of, do we get to the car? Unfortunately, the young man passed on. That's not obviously at no point that's our motive. We preserve life, and at the same time we got to protect the public, and then protect the individual. So after approach an individual myself, we go there to perform CPR and provide medical assistance, because the one thing you don't want is someone to pass on and that decision causes their death. And that's
something
what
that people don't understand about police officers. Like, say you were to get involved in a shooting, you shoot somebody and they're down. Your first responsibility, once the scene is safe, is to go render medical aid to the guy that you were just in a gun battle with.
Right.
It's crazy.
But that's what you have to learn to do, and that's why you have to be the professional at doing it, because you can't have your emotions start to take over and say, fuck this guy. He tried to do this to me. It's like, he did it. He made a decision, and now I got to be the professional that I'm hired to be. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, the guy made a decision to try to take my life. I act accordingly to protect mine. And then you do the things that are necessary to protect the public. Then as you scale through, then it's like, now he's hurt and injured. Now I got to do this part of the job. So it's segmented based on the decisions and the efforts of other people that may be around versus the decisions that you have to make discretionally to your safety, the public, and the individual themselves. They can't protect themselves. You got to protect them from themselves.
I want people to understand how difficult it is. You have to go try to save somebody's life who just tried to take yours. Police officers have to do this all the time. Mm-hmm. All right? Think about how difficult that would be. That means you have to drop whatever aggression you have inside of you, whatever adrenaline dump is going on inside your core, and then you have to switch from aggressive mode, protective mode, to life-saving mode, like that. There's no in between. It's crazy if you think about it, and I think you navigated that situation very well.
Yeah, and on top of yourself being hurt, going to the hospital, getting evaluated, everyone's calling after they see it on the news and like, what happened? And that's my kids call me, like, oh, that's Daddy's car on TV, and then I got other police officers calling, as you heard, like you was at dispatch at that time. The detective bureau came down, and all he heard was the white car was in the tree. They thought it was my car because I got hit, and that's the last thing he heard. And then now the car's in the tree, so they thought that was my car wrapped around. And then we noticed that they saw me outside, and then everything went the way it went. I walked away.
My first sight of you was with your gun drawn.
Yeah,
that's my first sight of you.
Yeah.
So, how's you're bringing all this stuff home? You're seeing all this stuff, and for a small town, we were relatively busy. I think we were. Now you have to go home and you have to disconnect and raise 2 children and have a wife there. But at some point, there's some problems in the marriage. Mm-hmm. Do you think it was job related, or do you think it was just you two bumping heads?
I think some things come with entitlement. Sometimes that happens. I worked all the time. I was kind of like, you can call a workaholic. I just wanted better for my family.
Yeah.
I'm younger, so it's time to get it. Now I have the job that I've been trying to get for the last 10 years. So now that's a pride thing. Now it's like, it's time to catch up on lost time. And so now when I'm looking at the job, it's like, you're trying to raise kids. She's young, trying to be a mother. I'm in the middle of my career. It's just a lot going on. I think a lot what happens as things started happening after I had the one accident and misfortune of that situation, I come back into work, and I think around that time, her family got murdered.
And that's going to do it for part 1 of The Suffering of Retaliation with Freddie Mitchell. There's just too much information to put in here in one episode, so we're going to break it up into 2. So go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount off your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, X, Clapper, whatever, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow The Suffering Podcast. Next week's going to be number 2.